Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Sex Work with the Butterfly Princess Steph Marie and Amy Taylor. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. Episode 4 is we're going to look at breaking stereotypes. People who are sex workers or who work within the sex industry often face a lot of stereotypes, and this can relate to how they are from what they do in their work life to what they do in their real lives. So we're going in today's episode. We're going to discuss common misconceptions about the work for sex workers and their lives, and highlight personal stories and diverse experiences to challenge stereotypes. The work of sex, the lives of sex workers are multifaceted and their experience are as diverse as any other profession. By listening to our stories and understanding our realities, we can challenge harmful stereotypes and work towards a more inclusive and supportive society. Sex workers often face perverse stereotypes that misinterpret our lives and experiences. These misconceptions contribute to stigma and discrimination, making it crucial to explore our real lives to foster understanding and empathy. And now I'm going to pass you on to Amy to talk to you about some common misconceptions versus the realities of what some sex workers face. So, hi Amy, thank you for joining me again today.
Hi, Steph Marie. It's so nice to be back
Yeah,
with you, beautiful one.
yes. So,
Thanks for this.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions, as you said, about who we are and how we live versus our real lives. That there's this sort of weird idea that we're not just people. Um, and that misconception, those cause us a lot of harm. We live in the closet, and like everybody in the closet that you think you don't know, gay people or differently abled people, when you don't understand it, you fill that gap in your knowledge sometimes with a lot of mythology, and some of that in the case of sex work is harmful, uh, which will never not be odd to me because, by the way, everyone dates and a lot of people, most people have sex. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of common ones as you talked about. One I can think of is that all of us are coerced sort of slaves that are victims of trafficking. And while, of course, trafficking is a serious problem, and I agree with going after it with the full force of the law, coercing any labor is horrific. And but frankly, there's plenty of that going on in agriculture, in house cleaning, in childcare, in lots of other industries too. The sex trafficking is the hot topic everybody's obsessed with. I get it. It's sex. Everybody's fascinated by sex. Okay. But coerced labor is a labor issue that has nothing to do with fucking. Excuse my language.
yeah,
So, and while trafficking is a problem, I know thousands of sex workers. They entered it by choice for economic reasons, the same way everybody enters the choice of their job. And sometimes there are ways in which the job is better for them than any other job that's available to them, given their personality and skills and education and status. I know many single mothers who their child is able to go to private school and they're able to be with their son or daughter, or sons or daughters, because they only work like 8 hours a week and they make what a surgeon makes. I'm not glorifying it. It'd be great if these women could choose something else, but this was a judicious choice, better for them, flaws and all, than the other options that were available to them. And so they've chosen it. It is essential that we distinguish between consensual adults, which the state has no right to regulate, the state does not own our bodies, engaging in sex work that hurts no one, and trafficking that can hurt people, because we make bad laws when we conflate the two. They are not the same thing.
That's really interesting. And sort of another misconception is that sex workers are uneducated and unskilled. Obviously, that certainly is not the case.
Yeah, we are as diverse as the general population in terms of skills and education. And I'm probably an overeducated one. There are many of us, but we possess a wide range of skills. This is usually not the only thing we do, even for work, and certainly not the only thing in our personal lives. No different than you have other interests and hobbies besides your show.
Yeah.
We are all diverse people, and looking at any of us as a monolith is reductionist and usually harmful.
The third misconception is sex workers have low self-esteem or no other options. Well, obviously, they do have other options, and they've obviously got no. They obviously have got self-esteem because they want to like be proud of the bodies and who they are, and
it's possible. I think my self-esteem is about as healthy and unhealthy as anybody else's. I mean, it's hard to keep your self-esteem these days with the internet telling you they hate you every day, but I think that's happening to a lot of people online, not just sex workers. Yes, there are good things about the work we chose. There are positive aspects to it. There are definitely negative ones. The psychological outcomes are very often the same as for any other work, and where they're worse, that is a byproduct of it, an indirect byproduct of criminalization and social stigma. So many of us have options, and sometimes even if we don't have that great of options, that's no different than any other human trying to survive in this capitalist hellscape we all live in.
So. Yes, and so the last misconception before we move on to personal stories is that sex workers are immoral or lack values.
Yeah, we are just people. We're just people. It's I know that we live in the closet. There's a certain requirement of discretion when you're sometimes with clients or on dates. Most clients would like the world not to know they're with a sex worker. Some clients don't care. They stand proudly, and that's amazing, but that's not the majority. And so, yes, the nature of our work is sort of discreet. I liken it to like a plastic surgeon who does celebrities. The plastic surgeon isn't typically allowed to go say, hey, that movie star's nose or boobs is my artistry. That's not their genetics. That plastic surgeon is required to maintain discretion. Our work is a lot like that. But the problem of being in the closet is that people fill the gap with this mythical creation of us as both victim and Jezebel, the monster. I get called both hundreds of times every single day. Well, people pick one. I mean, either sex workers are people or they're sort of demons. And honestly, if you don't think they're people, I struggle to talk to you because you're just not very smart. So,
and obviously we've talked about the common misconceptions, but now I think it'd be good to talk about some personal stories, because you in your work have because you do a lot of advocacy for sex workers, and you've obviously spoke to a number of people in the sex work industry who've shared their personal stories with you, and these people are all from diverse backgrounds. So first one, a person called Juno Mack is a sex worker and activist. Could you tell us a bit about Juno and what she advocates for?
yeah, so she's the co-author of a great book, if anybody's out there curious. It's called Revolting Prostitutes. And it's about the fight for sex workers' rights. And she talks about why we want decriminalization, not legalization. That can be a nuanced difference for those who are not familiar. But it's decrim that is the best for sex workers. She talks about the advocacy within our community and our fight for legal and social recognition. Yeah, it's a great book if anybody's interested.
Another personal story is from a lady called Annie Sparkle. Now, she's a former sex worker, but she is now working as an artist and educator. That's a really interesting spin on things.
Yeah, Annie Sprinkle she's a hoot. She's just a born artist and entertainer, beautiful and eccentric and colorful in the best way. She is so delightfully alive, and her performance art is warm and funny and sometimes sexy. And yeah, she's just very, California, San Francisco, weird in the best ways that I love. And she's so sex positive, unabashedly so. And I love that Annie Sprinkle has never apologized in decades of her work for who she is and what she believes in. And I think people like that make this world more tolerant and more beautiful. She's an icon at every age.
Yes, and I will be delighted to talk to any of these people. So if you could put me in touch with these people or send me in the right direction, I'd be delighted to talk with them.
I will. You'll love her.
Yeah. So the third lady I want to talk about now is a lady called Lena Chan. Now, she is a writer and again a former sex worker, and she's spoken openly about her experiences with sex work and its impact on her life. Now, I really love people who like me, like they have like diversity in life, or they've had agnostic, or like a lot of discrimination, but they're able to talk about it openly in order to help others.
Yes. Well, that's what you're doing with all kinds of different people and with your own beautiful presence, showing the world a differently abled person and all the beauty that's in you. So yes, Lena Chen, like you, shows up. She speaks quite openly, and not everything she talks about in sex work is super positive, but that's the truth of it. Like any job and any existence, we all have stories that bring people to their knees about our traumas and our mistakes, and this is life, right? So her advocacy for destigmatizing and particularly from the angle of what that would do to the mental health of sex workers is really inspirational. Some of her stuff is hard to read, but it's really important. So she's doing good work.
And the second lady is a lady called Laura Lee. Now, she is an Irish sex worker and activist who fought for the decriminalisation of sex work, in Ireland, because again, that must have been pretty tough for her, because Ireland, as we know, it's a very conservative country, very religious. You've got this thing between with that with Catholics and Protestants. So there's a lot of fiery discussions that can take place there.
Yes, that's true. They're wonderful people, but they lean religious. And she's bold to speak about a segment of society that has always existed and is part of the economy and part of the social fabric. But they've had, harmful legislation there, as well as disgusting stereotypes, and she's fought against them. She's a very brave, Irish women are famously feisty and strong, and she is indeed one of them.
With regards to that, with what you've just said, I think I think I have a bit of Irish heritage, possibly maybe because of my light skin. And so again, I'm a very fiery wanting to get out there. So some of my characteristics match with Laura Lee's, I'm sure.
It doesn't surprise me at all. And of course, no one is saying that all Irish people are anything. Please don't at me, internet. I'm not trying to be racist or stereotype, but I mean it as a sort of joke, the Irish feistiness. And I mean it as a compliment. It's tongue in cheek. I'm not that serious. But yes, to whatever degree you are bold and delightfully alive, if you're Irish, that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk now about we've talked about the stereotypes, and we've talked about some examples of personal stories. How do we address these stereotypes that we've talked about? So, for example, one of them is obviously education and advocacy.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're doing, you talk about it. You talk about the uncomfortable stuff. You talk to people you may not agree with, whose choices are different than yours. You talk to people even whose choices you might abhor, because the first step is speaking to each other in ways that are productive and calm and safe. So you talk to allies and you talk to adversaries. That's what advocates try to do. That's what we're trying to do in the halls of legislature in every city and country. And that's what the media is trying to do. So at my alma mater, UC Berkeley, the motto was Fiat Lux, which is Latin. It means let there be light. And I think anything you shine a light on, the light of truth, the light of exposure, becomes better, because it's in the dark that things fester and go badly. So we use all the platforms we have to speak: politics, social media, internet websites, obviously streaming media like this, and then public speaking in person. So yeah, it's what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. The second one is legal reform advocacy for the decriminalisation and legislation of sex work.
Yeah, so you can, as we've talked about, even if you, bless you, my dear, even if you detest sex work and their clients and sex workers, there is a phenomenon of harm reduction that I hope the fans agree with, that you would like to reduce harm, even if you don't like these people. If you don't agree with that and you just want them harmed and you're driven by a desire to spite and punish, then you are a bad person. But I have to think most people are not monsters and they don't want others hurt, I hope. So let's start with that premise, that if you agree that we can better ensure the rights and the safety of sex workers, and yes, even their clients, they're not a monolith, they're part of your community. Clients are your husbands, sex workers are your friends and family. If we want to reduce harm, then we can talk about legal reforms. We can, as we talked about earlier, we can distinguish consensual sex work from abusive, coercive trafficking problems. And we can reduce stigma after we attack the legal rights and reforms. So like Belgium has allowed sex workers to fully get benefits and retirement. New Zealand has allowed sex workers to sue a client who doesn't pay. Australian brothels, if a client misbehaves, he gets his ass tossed out by security. There are ways in which we can legally make this much better without saying that we think it's the greatest industry on earth, which probably most of you don't think it is. I'm not sure I think it is.
Yeah, and obviously with all this, obviously, there's got to be a right level of support for the sex work. So that means providing accessible health care and mental health services to support them in their work as well.
Yes, there is a lot of trauma, stigma, mental health resources are needed. And for sure, medical checks protect the entire community. In Northern California and Sacramento, the street-based transgender population had an HIV rate of almost 50%. And advocates that I know were trying to use that data to say, look, stop using condoms as evidence in arrest cases because they're not carrying them. And that's why there's such an astronomical HIV rate. If you stop with stigma, then you'll get people having safer sex and you'll get a reduction in disease transfer, which is what you see everywhere that you decriminalize. You see this in Calcutta. When you decriminalize, HIV rates go down because sex workers feel emboldened to demand safe sex because they're not working in a criminalized way. So yeah, healthcare and the legal rights for sex workers are intimately tied together.
Oh, well, thank you, Amy. That's been really informative. And this concludes episode 4 of the Sex Work series, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. So,